Hey guys, this is James from TeaDB bringing you InBetweenIsode number 72. So we are back on the Teas I Own series. Those of you that may have missed the first few episodes of this, it's basically different teas that I own, that I know fairly well. I want to show you guys basically what I drink regularly, what I like to buy. So rather than reviewing something that might be new to me or something that I've tried once from a sample and may or may not buy, something that I've already made that sort of purchasing decision for. So if you consider that sort of recommendation or a higher recommendation than normal episodes, that's definitely something to keep in mind. And so today's tea comes from a producer that needs no introduction to the show, Yunnan Sourcing. They are one of the big Western-facing vendors, and this is one of Scott's own productions. This is from 2014. He's produced this also in 2015 of spring. It's the Daqing Gushu from Autumn Material is what this one is. And so I've already brewed this a couple times just to sort of get acclimated to it. Each time it's become a little bit thicker. This is you see we're sort of getting like this very yellow liqueur. It was a little bit lighter on the initial two steeps. And for those that are wondering, similar to the Huangshan Gushu, which I reviewed a couple months ago, this is a cake that I own a pair of. And so I also am a fan of the 2015 spring version of this tea, but because I already own the 2014 autumn, I chose to sort of stand pat, at least for the time being, on picking up those. So it's a tea that I do enjoy in its young state, but I also think it's just a well-made Pu'erh tea, so I don't see why it couldn't age longer. So one thing you guys may or may not know is that in my Pu'erh, I tend to prefer teas that are more aged, at least semi-aged, like 7 or 8 years at the minimum. And so there's actually only 2 teas that I keep easy access to that would qualify as very young Pu'erh, at least the last couple of years. One of those teas is the Little Walk from Light to Tea, a very simple, humble daily drinker. We compared it to a couple verdant teas in the past InBetweenIsode, and the other one is this tea, the Daqing Gushu, which I think is a little bit nicer than the Little Walk. I think it's a really friendly tea, a really good introduction tea to people that are interested in young Pu'erh. I think it showcases a lot of like the nicer aspects to fresh tea. Let's have a smell. So very aromatic. Has sort of like that very soft cotton candy-ish aroma, maybe a little bit of floral aspects to it. Very nice smelling in general. That's not why you should buy it to age or anything like that, but it is a pleasant aspect that you can definitely appreciate about this tea if you are drinking it young. Similar aroma to a lot of the other Jinggu teas that Scott has pressed, including the Huangshan. I don't know exactly how these two compare because I haven't done the side-to-side. But I have compared the 2015 versions, and they are similar but different teas. Cheers, guys. So it's very smooth for a young tea. Initially, there's a lot of like sweetness in the mouth. The body is decently big, and then it sort of becomes, I think this is because it's a little bit stronger, it becomes more astringent in the mouth as it develops, and then eventually that astringency is going away now and is being replaced by sweetness. It has pretty good depth going into the back of the mouth and a little bit into the throat. Sort of like a sweet acorn nut sweetness to this is what I want to say. So those of you that are not familiar with Yunnan geography, and you should be careful about reading too much into these things, Jinggu is an area that is north of Xishuangbanna. It's over at the eastern side of the Pu'erh prefecture, or formerly known as Samao. And it's a place that it's one of the sort of areas that does produce a lot of Pu'erh teas. Scott has had an increasing amount of productions from those areas. I think in spring of 2015 he produced 6 or 7 teas from there, so that's quite a few. And I count myself as a fan of a few of these productions. My favorites have been the Huangshan and the Daqing Gushus, both this one and the 2015 version. Cheers, guys. So more of a strong bitterness at the forefront of this. Yeah, and it really sits in the mouth for a while. Good body on this one as well. Yeah, and I think the last thing to note about Scott and Scott's cakes is that Scott is still pressing a lot of 400 gram cakes, including this one. So you really have to do that price per gram calculation if you really want to know how it measures up, because so many producers are producing different shapes. Some are at 200, some are at 250. So what would this cake cost if it were 200 grams? It'd be something like $40 right now. It was $65 when I bought it, so you're looking at $32 or a little bit less if you get it on a sale for the 200 gram cake. So I think that's really actually a very, very exceedingly reasonable amount to pay for something that's of pretty high quality, in my opinion. So that bitterness is still sitting. Let's go for a couple more. There's nice big leaves in this material, pretty nice looking in general. Alright, so brewing parameters, I'm using pretty standard ones for me. 5 grams per 70 milliliters. Okay, alright, and so the liqueur, you can see it's actually pretty consistently showing up as a yellow. So sort of sweet sugar cane, very soft elements showing up in the aroma right now. Right now, to evaluate sort of like the aftertaste, it's sitting a lot in just the entirety of the mouth. Not a ton of throat feel, maybe a little bit at the top of the throat, but sitting definitely at the back of the mouth, at the front of the mouth. Yeah. Cheers, guys. Yeah, so sort of those, continuing on with that sweet nuttiness, I want to call it acorns. I think this would also be a good candidate if you are someone that likes to brew your young raw pu'erh at lower temperatures. I'm not someone that does that, but someone that likes to brew at 190, or I don't know what people brew at, 190, 195. If you want to avoid these sorts of bitter notes, I think this would be an exceedingly pleasant young tea to drink if you did dial those brewing parameters down a little bit. And that's something that I would consider doing if I were brewing for someone that I think is very averse to bitterness, someone that didn't want those notes. Personally, I find it a lot easier to evaluate teas if you are brewing everything at a boil. But that's a point of consideration if all you want to do is just strictly enjoy this tea. And it's something that you could mess around with the parameters. You could also dial back the leaf to water ratio. I like the fairly heavy parameters, maybe not quite as heavy as Scott, but I do like to hit my young pu'erh with pretty hot water at a decently high leaf to water ratio. Yeah, so I think the tea is really hitting its maximum power still. I would guess that this will go on for at least 12 or 13 steeps, depending on how you do it. It'll start to die off, or at least slow down a little bit in a steep or two. And yeah, I think that just about concludes this InBetweenIsode. So let me know what you guys would like to see, if you guys sort of like these episodes of teas that I have actually purchased and that I own. And thank you for Scott for producing such a fine young raw Pu'erh. I have enjoyed many of your productions, as I'm sure you know, and thank you guys for watching. Cheers.